to see you again. Feels like we were just here a week or two ago.
It definitely does. I was making the joke just a little while ago that, how often are we doing this? But no, it's good. It's always good to be back, and lots happened in a month. So, no, it's always good to catch back up.
Yeah, there's a lot to share. And we're out past the summer. Kids are back in school, and markets unpredictable.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get some cooler weather. That's always the hope as we get into September here.
Yeah. So we've got some things to celebrate. So office announcement, we've got our permanent office moved in Fort Worth with Team Lux. You've been up there quite a bit. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah. So we're on the western side of Fort Worth, just outside of Fort Worth, the actual city, but in Western Place. It's a great building, great location, right off the freeway, easily accessible, first floor access, easy parking. So all those boxes checked for just convenience factor. But also, it's a beautiful building, and they're really well situated. So a couple of closing rooms, very nice lobby, and then some really good workspace. So looking to continue to grow and expand and all of that good stuff. But we're excited about it, and it's got a little bit of the Lux team's flair to it. So that's good.
Nice. Well, I was up there about 2 weeks ago. I hadn't been to Fort Worth in a while, and I'm thrilled to have an office in Fort Worth. I love that little community.
Yeah,
big community.
I was going to say, I can't really call it little. It's ever growing and expanding, and it's there's a lot going on. So good to be a part of it.
We fit well in Fort Worth, I think.
I think so.
So, well, we've got some milestones and anniversaries to celebrate, and I did just unveil, but we're going to wait to show it. We love to celebrate our people. We've had some people with us for over 20 years, so we've got a really special thing to share with them, an award to share their years of service. But tell us some of the folks.
Yeah, well, one of our fan favorites, Arjuna Polanco, is celebrating 22 years this year. So it's great to be able to recognize him. We had a fun a couple years ago when he hit his 20th, but hard to believe it's already flown by and it's 22. So big one for him for sure.
And we've got Amy Kraft in our Kingwood office, who's been with us 1 year.
Sales extraordinary. Yeah, for whatever it's worth, Amy, if you're watching this, we tried to make it all work sooner. This could have been like a 3-year deal for you, but but no, it's great that the way time lined up and that we were able to bring her on. We love having her, and she's great. She's great in that market and doing really good things.
She's really making an impact out there. Yeah. So. And then,
Carrie Balderas, so another fan favorite, and she's been with us for 8 years now, which is a little surprising. Some of me thinks it's longer. It feels like she's been here since inception. Yeah. But that's just a testament to her and who she is, and we're excited that she's out in Round Rock and on Team M, and she's doing a great job and getting lots of good feedback and continuing to grow and blossom.
Yeah, I just shared a client's email that was a raving fan of Carrie's, so that was exciting.
Absolutely.
And then we've got Mr. Eric Fontenette, not to be confused. Not to be confused with yours truly.
No. So it's one of the cool things about the company is that we have 2 of us here. He truly is from Louisiana, slightly different last name, slightly spelled differently. But 4 years for Eric. Congratulations to him.
And for anybody watching, president is Eric Fontenot with an A, and Eric is Fontenot with an E.
That's right.
Okay, so
that's how it works. Yeah, but we'll both respond to whatever.
So hard to believe it's been 3 years. It's been 3 great years with the Lady Bird team led by Brandy Hale. Yeah. So Brandy Hale and her team. So we've got Melanie McBee Fox also on that team. She's done an amazing job of just blossoming and growing and building her business. And so an awesome team between her and Brandy. And then we've got Ashley Warnken and Melissa Woods rounding out that team. And they are quite a powerful group of ladies. Powerful.
Yeah.
2 of the 4 have gotten married in the last 3 years too.
Something in the water at Patten. It's been a lot of weddings here as of late. So it's nice to see love triumph all.
Yes. So. All right. Well, we are going to talk this month quite a bit about educating folks on the closing disclosure.
Sure.
And so the first one we're going to talk about is a piece we've got called Understanding a Closing Disclosure. And so What we're trying to do here is help home buyers in particular understand the process. Often that closing disclosure can be a bit intimidating. Multiple pages, lots of data in there, and hopefully by the end of this, our viewers will know what to look for. So, Eric, what is a closing disclosure?
Well, it's the document that came in to replace the settlement statement, the HUD settlement statement, and it's really designed to be a little bit easier to read, a little bit more upfront, and provide a whole lot of transparency. Whenever anything new comes in, there's always a little bit of reservation and hesitation. But at the end of the day, this is less about the people who do it every day. It's more about the consumer and the consumer being able to get all of the information in one place and be able to easily read through it and understand what was initially disclosed to them by their lender, and then what their actual payment and cash to close is going to be. And at the heart of it, that's really what it is it's to be able to see all of it in one easy to read place. And the reason they designed it this way was so often in years prior, there would be a lot of quotes for the home buying process to come out, and then things would change along the way. And so the goal of the Consumer Finance Bureau, CFPB, in putting together this closing disclosure was to provide a very clear, easy to read, in one place document that the buyers could look at it, see it, and understand, okay, this is what they said that I was going to spend. This is what I'm spending. This is all in line. It's a certain amount of tolerance. And from our perspective on the title side, right, our goal is to make sure that all of that information is in there as quickly and as accurately and as effectively as possible, so it can be disclosed by the lender in compliance in the prescribed amount of time. And so that's what we're always working toward and working with our lender partners on, to be able to put these together so that they're within the tolerance amount. There's as little variance as possible, and that our buyers are able to see what they're going to be borrowing and what they're going to be needing to bring to closing, so that the transaction goes as smooth as possible.
Well, I do think it's a lot easier to read than the HUD for the general person. So who creates the closing disclosure?
Well, it's a cumulative team effort, but at the heart of it, it's really on the lender. The lender really puts this together. So we, as the title company, add in our title fees. We provide our title fees in the beginning of the process to the lender, and they put those into their initial disclosures. And then as the process continues to migrate towards closing, the final numbers all come together on the CD. We get a CD that we balance to and make sure that all of the information that we need on the CD, so some of the ancillary costs that are not necessarily put on by the lender, things such as tax prorations, maybe need slight tweaks and adjustments, sometimes HOAs, there's an ancillary fee or a transfer fee or something like that. Maybe there's some extra extenuating payments that need to be made, making sure that the commissions are on there correctly and disclosed in the right way. All of those things we balance and make sure. And so the lender does get that information and is compiling it along the way, but then we put a final set of eyes on it. We make sure that all the numbers balance out, so that when the actual funds come to the closing table, when the lender sends their money, when the buyer brings in their money, all the numbers match up, and a buyer can get their keys and a seller can get their funds.
Yeah.
And that's really the part of the art of the transaction. Is that one of the things in title, and we say this a lot, is we're really the hub of the wheel.
Yep.
There are a lot of spokes that come into play, and they typically all meet here at the title company.
Yep.
And so our job is to keep that wheel moving and spinning and keeping it as smooth as possible. And the way that we do that is we try to work very hard, or we do work very hard at keeping in really constant communication with our partners in the transaction.
So the buyer is going to get the closing disclosure from their escrow team?
No, the buyer is going to get their closing disclosure from the lender.
Okay.
The lender discloses to the borrower in the transaction.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have to get it how far in advance?
So the buyer gets the closing disclosure, is supposed to be getting the full closing disclosure within 3 days of closing.
Okay, so closing disclosure, let's break it down a little bit by section. So first you've got the loan terms.
Yeah, so the closing disclosure on the first page is very informational, right, and overarchingly informational. So at the very top, it's got all of the necessary information for the borrower, like the date it was issued, so making sure that it's in compliance with the 3 days and so on, the closing date, names, locations, lender names, all of that, right? So all of that is the kind of the header. And then as you were mentioning, the loan terms. And so as we said a moment ago, the reason that they created this was so that it would be basically an easy reader for the things that actually matter, right? The things that the general questions that borrowers have that they want to know, that they want to make sure are right. So rather than having to compile all these things from different documents and some of these legal complex documents, only on the note it says what the principal and interest is, right? And then what is the principal and interest plus the mortgage insurance and the property taxes and the insurance going to be? And so rather than having to compile all this, the closing disclosure was created so it's all right there. So the loan terms are exactly that. You've got the gross loan amount, so exactly what you're borrowing. If you're borrowing $500,000 or $1 million or $300,000, it says it right there and at what interest rate it is. And then so right off to the right of that number, you also have some real simple questions, yes or no. So it's like, okay, can the loan amount change, right? Is there any kind of negative equity that can be built into it? Is it something that you can pay less and then the loan amount grows over time? Does the interest rate change, right? Is it an ARM? Is it an adjustable rate? And so those are check no or state no or yes. So it's very easy for the consumer to make sure they got what they are expected to get, right? And there's not this bait and switch, or they thought they understood something, they thought they were applying for this, and they actually got that. And it's not to say that it's they're nefarious business practices, but there were times where people didn't understand exactly what they were getting. It was explained one way, and then when it got to them, it was actually a little bit different. And this removes any of that ambiguity, right? Yeah. This removes any of the questions or anything that could potentially shroud it. And so you have the loan amount in full, the interest rate in full, the monthly principal and interest payment. So this is what exactly the payment is based on just the loan. Then is there any prepayment penalty, right? So that was another thing that, back before the mortgage meltdown.
Would surprise people.
It would absolutely surprise people. You would have these adjustable rate mortgages, but they would have prepayment penalties, so you couldn't pay it off until a certain amount of time. And that would make a big difference. Or if they couldn't pay off these loans and they needed to refinance out of it or whatever it may have been. And then balloon payment. And again, these things were created in ways to really encourage and provide borrowers with a level of confidence that they knew exactly what was going on. So they didn't have to compile lots of information from multiple documents that they don't ever see.
Yeah, full transparency.
That's
right?
Full transparency as best they possibly could, and in a way that's easy to read.
So loan terms, projected payment.
So that goes along with it too, right? So then we mentioned a moment ago, it's monthly principal and interest in the loan terms. That's the total amortized amount plus the interest that you pay and what your monthly payment looks like. But then on the next section, the projected payments are how you get to these things. So it breaks it down further. The principal and interest, which is what the expectation is on whatever the loan amount is and just the interest. But then also, is there any mortgage insurance? And what is that additional cost on your monthly payment? What's your estimated escrow? So a lot of these loans and a lot of people escrow for property taxes and for hazard insurance. Sometimes it's a condition of the loan and the interest rate that you get, right? Those things matter and when you qualify for certain types of loans. So this again was created in a way that would be very easy. So then when it gets down to estimated monthly payment, it's right there, very clean, very clear. And the reason they say it's the estimated monthly payment is that some of those things can change. All right. So when you escrow, when you have mortgage insurance, when your property taxes, there can be some small fluctuations, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can go down. Rarely, especially in this day and age. But theoretically, right? Yeah, it could possibly go down. But on the other side,
your property taxes?
Your property taxes are slight increases, hazard insurance or property insurance.
That's been going up.
Nonstop, right? Yeah. So Your property insurance, those are the expectations. So that's why they say with they call it projected payments, and they call them estimated amounts. But it's what your initial payments will be coming out of this. And that's what that first page is to bring that all very much to the forefront, so that there's easy understanding, easy disclosure, and that the buyer can say, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into. This is what I expected.
Yeah.
And then there's a little summary at the bottom where what the total closing costs were and what the cash to close is. And so it just kind of pulls it all together. The closing costs are the loan cost, the lender cost, the title company cost, all of those things, the cost of borrowing the money, and then the actual closing at the title company.
So that's the amount they bring to closing, right?
Not necessarily. The cash to close is the amount they bring to closing.
Okay.
So the closing cost can differ, right, depending on how much money has been put down, how big the loan amount is, what kind of credit they're getting for their prorated taxes. So it's not just the apples to apples. The cash to close and the closing costs don't necessarily just connect.
Yeah.
Right. There's
good to know.
So that is why there can be a difference in those numbers, and there typically is a difference in those.
There typically is, okay.
Yeah.
And then the next section is going to be other costs. Tell us about those other costs.
Well, I think. Okay. So I think rather than just necessarily look at other costs, so that really wraps up the first page of the CD, right? So that first page is the summary of all things, and then moving into the second page of the CD is a breakdown of everything that you just went through, right? So it's a breakdown of what the closing costs are and what those loan costs look like and how they look.
So also, how we got to that figure.
That's right.
Okay.
And so page 2 is a breakdown of what the summary is of really the closing costs and cash to close.
Okay.
Okay. So then you get an idea of what the closing costs were from your loan. So, the origination costs, the appraisal, sometimes there's an attorney review fee, processing fees, things of that nature are going to show how they're paid and who paid by whom. Okay. And then the next section is going to be typically your title company fees. So those are services typically that you have the ability to, as a borrower, to shop for. You can go out and you can choose any title company you want. You have that opportunity. I think we talked about it last time about who chooses the title company and so on. At the end of the day, the borrower has the ultimate right when they're borrowing money per the guidelines, government guidelines, is they get to choose. Now, from a traditional standpoint and a practical standpoint, usually makes the most sense. Whoever's going to pay for that title policy to make the determination as to which title company they're going to do. And the largest part of the title policy is usually the owner's title policy in Texas, right? It's different state to state, but for the sake of this conversation, that's what that looks like. So our fees typically land under the section C of services borrowers can shop for, and that's where our costs are going to be, the escrow fees, the lender insurance, tax certificate, those sorts of things. And it breaks it also down who pays for what. So it's going to be the seller side or the buyer side, and who's paying for what portion of it. And that's where you get that total loan cost, right? It's the accumulation of the loan cost, the origination charges from the lender, any other fees that are basically associated with the lender. The lender makes determinations on that the borrower doesn't really have a choice on. They don't shop for it. It's just kind of all put together. And then title company fees is effectively what it is, where they do have some flexibility and some option to choose.
And just a reminder, because we said it last month, but the title premium is set by the Texas Department of Insurance. I just had one where a friend of mine was buying a house in Georgetown, Texas, and they came back and they were like, well, this is title cost. Hey, Tiffany, I'm so confused. This is not what I was quoted. You work for a title company. So they had gotten their loan estimate, the original one, and the title premium was like really low. It was like $400 for a $350,000 house. Well, I guess they'd put in California costs, or I don't know, or just gotten it wrong. And so I was able to say, well, that, it's determined by the state of Texas and the Texas Department of Insurance. It's the same at every title company. So
then the next section after the loan costs and the total loan costs with being borrower paid, or what lumps in is called the other costs. right, on the second page there. And those other costs are the things that I was talking about earlier that make up some of the additional charges maybe on a monthly basis for the payments, right? So you and also cause a difference in the cash to close component. So these are where you'll either receive some credits, prorations for interest already paid, or taxes that are being credited to you, or you're having to put extra money up front for funding of an escrow account. You're going to see some of those things, not necessarily the credits, I misspoke, but you're going to see some of the other things that are in addition to the loan. So you'll get your homeowner's insurance. You'll see it, homeowner's insurance in full in the other cost section. You'll see the cost for recording the mortgage and the cost for recording certain documents. You'll see the collection of escrows in this section. So anything that you're collecting and that's where you'll see a difference in the payment. So that's where this second section here, other costs, really come into play. Okay. The other part that you'll see typically here is this is where you'll see some adjustments happen a little bit for some of the title insurance, and you'll see the seller paying a portion on behalf of the buyer and seeing a credit back and forth. That way, that's where this pops up. Okay. But yeah, the other costs are specifically and typically, taxes, any other prepaids that you're going to pay, and then funding of the escrow account.
Okay. And cash to close?
Well, so this will all total up, and this is where you'll start to you'll move on, and so you'll on the next page. It's kind of interesting. They turned the third page of the closing disclosure into what used to be the first page of the HUD settlement statement. So the third page of the closing disclosure is basically the breakdown of the borrower's costs and the seller's costs and where the credits and everything totals up at the end. So on this last page, you'll see the sales price for the property. You'll see the total loan amount that's being paid. You'll see a total of all the closing costs, which we just talked about from the last page. You'll see prorations and credits for HOAs, taxes that have already been paid or yet to be paid by the seller or on the buyer's behalf. And then any other agreements that may be in place between buyer and seller. So if there's a seller credit that's being given, you'll see this is where those credits and debits take place. And this is where things will total up. And so at the end of the day, it'll say cash to close or cash to at the very bottom of that third page. That will go back and match up with the first page of the CD that says this is how much your closing costs were and this is how much your cash to close is. Okay. So that third page is really the end all be all kind of culmination component of like I said, it used to be the first page of the HUD settlement statement. Now it becomes the cumulative. This is where everything gets
pulled together,
totaled up, and balances back out with the first page.
What would you say is the section we see that's usually the most confusing to a buyer, or they just overlook it?
I don't know that there's really a section that I would say is the most confusing to a buyer. I think that, as they walk through and they've seen it a couple of times, they start to understand, certainly. But having the summary page up front is very, very helpful. Yeah. Right? It really does answer the primary questions that most people have as it relates to a loan. It pulls all the information from all the necessary places. It gives you the totals and says, this is what it's going to be. The math check is really on the next two pages where you start to see some of the back and forth, who's paying for what, where some credits are being, and depending on the way the loan is structured and how the particular mortgage company or the lender likes to see it on a settlement statement, they will sometimes have fees that are being paid for before closing or paid for by the seller or paid for by others spread out on that second page. So that, to answer your question, that's probably where, if you're really diving in, you can get a little bit confused. Okay. Because numbers can be kind of interspersed or dispersed a little bit all over the place. And it really depends on the way the lender wants to disclose it. We at the title company, we do the balancing of the CD. So we get the seller CD, and put one together that balances there, so we have it for closing. But the CD that gets signed, the actual closing disclosure, is the seller's final document.
Okay.
Right? That's their document that they create. You asked that earlier. They provide that document, and that's the one that gets funded off of. That's the one that goes into the package. That's the final document that brings everything to closure.
Okay.
And or consummation, as they like to say.
So funny.
So
when the CD came out, they had specific terms they wanted to use.
This is how you consummate
and it went from closing to consummating the closing.
That's it.
I wonder who came up with that.
CFPB. So, but yeah, so that and effectively that really is the CD. Those are the real high points and the most important aspects of what the CD is. There are a couple other pages that are the loan disclosure. There's some check marks. It tells you, again, it breaks down and pulls some of the specifics that are on the loan or on the note. So, if there are going to be any late fees, is it an assumable loan? Is there a demand feature in the loan? So it is very important. This is basically the breakdown of what the deed of trust says is the terms of the loan, and what the note says are the terms of the loan. So it allows for, again, an easy read of the more complex document for the borrower to be able to review and see and feel confident in.
So in essence, the CD is definitely giving transparency.
Yep.
To the buyer first in summary, and then getting granular. And if they have questions, they should reach out to.
Yeah, so that was very well said. That's exactly what it is. It's transparency, and then it takes it from very summarized to a bit more granular as you go page by page by page, and gets down into the nitty gritty. But any of the answers that you would typically want are going to be found in the CD. If there are questions as it relates to the CD, questions should typically be directed back to the lender.
Okay.
From a title company perspective, we can answer some questions as it relates to fees that we collected for, things that were reported that we needed to bring in, or any of the title company related fees. But as it comes to any of the terms of the loan, any of the specifics of the loan, any of the charges of the loan, those are going to be things that have to be directed back towards the lender because they're the ones who are going to be able to answer that. We can't speak on their behalf. In fact, our job is merely to really deliver and disclose all the information that's there, make sure that they see it, and by witnessing their signature, that's their acknowledgement that they agreed to it.
So if I'm a buyer, I get my CD, I'm buying a house, I have questions, I should call my lender. If I'm a seller and I get my CD to review, I should call?
Well, the seller side's a little different,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The seller side is typically comprised of the specifics from the contract and what they agreed to in the contract. So the title company can clarify if there's a question about why there's a credit, what is being collected for from a tax certificate standpoint, or why the taxes are being collected or something of that nature. Typically, those questions we can shine a light on because that we are compiling that information and putting it together. Now, the reporting of that information is coming from outside sources, right?
Yeah,
public
from
record.
the contract.
Well, and from public record also, right? And so that's where we would direct them back to if there's an issue with valuation or how much taxes are being collected and so on and so forth. Then those are where we would want to direct them back to the taxing authority, or to point them back to the contract to say, this is what we read, this is what you guys said you agreed to, that's why there's a credit here. If there's a question about the credit or some sort of discrepancy in that end, then we would direct them back to their agent and have them discuss it directly with them. We don't negotiate contracts. That's not we can't do that. We have to act as a neutral third party. We simply gather the information and report it as best we possibly can on the disclosure statements.
It's a really good point, because as the title company, again, we are a neutral third party. We don't represent anyone in the transaction.
Well, we have a fiduciary responsibility to both parties, right?
Yep.
So we have to act in their best interest on both sides of the fence, and disclose whatever we think is relevant to that a normal person would have wanted to know as it relates to the transaction. It's a fine line to walk because it's a disclosure requirement, and then as it pertains to that particular transaction and so on. So our job is to make sure everybody sees everything they're supposed to see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a great overview of the closing disclosure. Thank you, Eric.
Hopefully it wasn't too choppy, but there's more information online that we have that can also break it down.
Yeah, several pieces.
And then also anybody who watches this that's interested, we have some really very good escrow officers who do this day in, day out, every single day. They're very good at what they do, and they can answer any questions that you have as far
as they will welcome
concerned.
That. I know all of our folks
for sure
welcome any questions. All right, so our marketing team has put together several really helpful pieces to prepare people to come to the closing. So one of them is called Packing for the Closing Table, 10 Things You'll Need. And so, what do people need to bring to the closing table, Eric, to be prepared?
Well, that's good. I mean, it's not like either side of the transaction doesn't have enough to pack already, but in addition to that, we do ask that they come prepared. They want to come prepared and feel confident about what they're bringing to the table to make sure that there are really no issues. Really the essentials, especially on the buy side, your ID. You want to make sure that you can show who you are. We've already asked for it ahead of time, right? But then being able to confirm that and validate that at the time of closing. So a valid
can't be expired.
Can't be expired. A valid government issued ID. So is very important in order for us to notarize documentation, and that's a requirement. So we definitely need that.
Yep.
So first and foremost, bring your driver's license, bring your passport. Make sure that it's still valid, so we can notarize it for you. I think the second, probably most important thing is funds, right?
Yep.
You want to make sure that you bring your funds to close. So in a transaction, there are different ways that money's come to the table. We're talking about buyers specifically here, but in the beginning of the transaction, we're going to ask, and the buyer's typically going to deliver earnest money and option money.
Mm-hmm.
That changed a little while ago, not too long ago, where the option money and the earnest money were being delivered in one check to the title company.
Yep.
Right?
Thank goodness.
All together. It made things move a little bit more smoothly, so that the clock would start ticking and everybody would know that the money is there, and we would act as that escrow agent and have that option money. The option money is just that. It's the buyer's ability to look at the house, get inspections done, and then exit the contract without any further penalty. Right,
yeah.
That's why you pay the option money. And so it used to be that the option money needed to be delivered directly to the seller's agent, to the listing agent, and have it in hand and them acknowledge it prior to. And that could sometimes be complicated or cause delays, and then it would be the matter of timing on the delivery of that option money.
Yeah, because there's timing timelines that have to be met, and I remember.
Sure, the clock started when you signed the contract, and you say, "Hey, it's here. I'm going to go deliver my earnest money, and I'm going to deliver you the option money, and my 3 days or 5 days or 10 days to cancel the contract start now."
Yeah.
Right. And so because of that, and because of some of the complexities with just the delivery and the timing, and it's the goal in all of this is to make both the buyers and sellers' lives as easy as possible. We want to streamline the transaction and make things, and we're constantly in our industry, whether it be agents, lenders, title companies, surveyors, we're all working to do our best to try and streamline as best we possibly can, so the experience that the consumer has is just that. It's efficient, it's streamlined, it's easy. It's already a complex transaction. It's already going to be stressful, and these are large dollar figure transactions. It's the biggest financial transaction most people do or spend in their entire lives, right? So that's why. So cash to close, very important. So the delivery of of earnest money is typically already being done. So sometimes it's a personal check, sometimes it's a wire transaction, and we provide that information on how to deliver that through our secure system ahead of time. Right? Yeah. And so one thing that is really, really important is that, for all to hear, that we never deliver wiring instructions in any other format other than through our secure portal. And the other part is we never change our wiring instructions ever. And so, there have been many instances where people get a little confused, or they want to see wiring instructions get sent back through an email, and we try to we understand that it sometimes can be a little bit inconvenient, but for their safety and for their security, and to ensure that the money gets to where it's supposed to be, we only operate through our secure portal systems. We only have one set of wiring instructions. We'll never change our wiring instructions. We only bank with a certain bank, and none of that changes, right? And along the way, we want to make sure that everybody remembers that, and make sure that they keep sending the money to the right place.
Well, this is significant enough to say it again. And I think it's us, Patten Title, as a title company, and I would say, in this industry, it is best practices across all title companies that buyers, you should be looking for a title company, and you should be expecting communication through a secure portal. And big red flags should be jumping out at you if wiring instructions change during the process, or are given via text message, even email that is not secure, or a phone call. So to protect the buyers who are bringing large sums to closing, it should be through a secure portal, and when in doubt, call your escrow team.
That's exactly right. Call a known number. That you found, that you've independently verified.
Yeah.
Is the actual company.
Exactly.
Right? And so this is something that happens, that it's a constant affront on title companies. They're constantly being a cause, and it's also agents that the bad actors are trying to spoof and fish and be able to navigate their way into. And so we are ardent about the way that we approach this. It is hard and fast rules. And
non-negotiable to protect.
To protect. We want to operate in the best interests of our people and our customers. And along those lines too is that we have some other secure measures that we provide. So we have some really great partners that we work with that ensure that those wires, they also insure those wires that are incoming, and then also the ones that are outgoing, that they're going to the right people on an individual basis. And so we work with some really great companies like Certified, our bank, and our Quality, our title processing service, has a very solid protection plan called Shield, where they do verification processes. So we're doing everything that we possibly can, but what we can't do is we can't alter our processes. Those things have to be non-negotiable. And bringing that money to the table is just, we want to make sure that it gets to where it's supposed to be.
So more and more with technology, people are wiring funds. Can they bring a check to closing with their funds? A personal check?
No. Cashier's check, right?
Yep.
So the state of Texas particularly requires what are called good funds for closing. Right? And good funds means it's either a wire or in the form of a cashier's check. We do not accept cash, and we do not accept Bitcoin. Maybe at some point, but it is cashier's checks and wires, not ACH transfers. Right? Those are not considered good funds. Those are batch transactions. So we're very specific, and it's not just us it's not us saying, hey, we need the specificity. It's Texas Department of Insurance. These are
this isn't a patent policy.
Texas. That's right. And so, but we do require wires or cashier's checks, but that's what constitutes good funds. Now, receiving in earnest money, as long as it's under certain dollar figures, we can't accept that. And then we also work with a company called Zachem for earnest money deposits, and those are electronic earnest money deposits. Those are approved, so they go in, they create an electronic check, and they can deliver that to the title company electronically, so it's very fast and efficient. But the cash to close is number two, if not number one, right? When it comes to what you need to bring to closing.
Okay, the last couple things just to hit on is, when can a buyer expect to get their keys and move in?
We like to fund as soon as we possibly can, right? So it is the typical process for closing is we have, and what we like to try and do is have the buyers come in first. It doesn't always work this way, and we typically don't do closings anymore where it's all parties at one table. We usually split the closings up, and the reason being is we like to have the buyers come in and sign first. If the buyers can come in and execute their loan paperwork and their signed paperwork first, that gives the title company an opportunity to take those documents and send them back to the lender for what's called funding approval.
Yeah.
Right? Because typically the lender does not send the money until they have certain documents in hand, or if they have sent the wire already, they want to see that the certain documents have been signed, and then they give you authorization to release the funds, right? So if we have the buyers come in and sign first, then we can get all of that taken care of ahead of time and make sure, and then once the seller comes in, there are only one or two documents that the seller needs to sign that have to be sent off for that remaining funding approval. We can have those signed first, send them off to the lender. They give us the authorization. And by the time the seller is done signing, we can take those keys, we can authorize the wire or cut them the check right then and there at closing, and then the buyer can get their keys. Typically what ends up happening is that agents will be able to negotiate or work with one another to be able to have the keys available for the buyer as soon as they can verify that the file has funded. So
that makes a lot of sense, because if the seller were to sign first, right? Like, it's like buying.
Well, the seller's going to be wanting where their money is.
They want their money.
They want to get paid. They either want to get a check, or they want. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. We've got to make sure that the buyer signs their documents too, and then we got to get the funding approval.
Well, yeah, it's like if you're buying a car, you've got to pay for the car before you drive off with the car.
That's right.
So you've got to pay for the house before you get the key.
That's right.
So yeah.
And just from a timing perspective too, it is one of those things where the process is a little bit more daunting and a little bit more voluminous on the buyer side than it is the seller side on these deals. So you want to go through the stack of paperwork that the buyer has to sign. And one of the reasons also, it goes back to that a really smooth closing process. It's very nice, and I think kind of in a fairy tale sort of way. The buyers and sellers, they all sit down at the table and they shake hands, and that's great. And we have some deals that still go that way, but there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's not the most efficient.
It's not efficient, and people are busy, and especially in today's day and age. So to get everybody to come and sit around a table, and for one buyer to be signing their paperwork, and then the seller to be signing their paperwork, and then to gather it all up, that becomes a little bit more complex. And then what could take 45 minutes ends up taking 2 hours. And nobody really wants that, especially if we can strategically put it in place. So we try very hard to make sure it's buyer then seller, and do that well in advance so that everybody knows. And then we're all working towards the same timelines.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is a process with a lot of people involved, a lot of data involved, but we've got a little chart that we're going to share below called the patent proven process, to kind of break it down to make it as simple as possible for the buyer and the seller to understand. So I think our team does a great job of keeping it efficient and smooth. And so, okay, a couple other things is, anybody who wants to dive deeper or get a little more expertise in this area, we'll link below some other patent pieces we've got. One is Title Insurance Glossary of Terms. Another one is Tips for Closing. And the last one is Expected Closing Costs. So diving deeper on any of those things, you can look for the links below. And last, we've got some really great September content or fall content. So we've got some seasonal target marketing, also some Halloween marketing tips, seasonal home maintenance. So as a homeowner, I use those. I think we come out with it in spring and fall, and it is very helpful. And it's a great piece for realtors, lenders, etc., to pass on to their clients, to their database. My personal favorite, state parks and family adventures. And then holiday client party checklist. Believe it or not, it is time to start planning those holiday parties. All the spots are getting booked booked up right now for December. Last two, fall bucket list. Great one to not let fall just get away from you and get into the grind of work or school or whatever. So check that one out. And then the final one is in Central Texas. Big event is ACL Fest. And we've got a marketing piece that you can share using your social media with lineup and other information. Anyway, thanks for sitting down with me today to talk about the closing disclosure.
Always happy to do it.
All the tips and make it smooth.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.